like? Well, I don't know. I mean, if you'd like, but you hardly know whether you would like me. No. I'm getting there in a car with some of my dear friends, but I could meet you in the lobby. The Shrine Auditorium. About 8? Wonderful.
A teenage vamp making a date in Foxes, a story of California teens and one of 5 new movies we'll be reviewing, and in the case of Foxes, disagreeing about on sneak previews. This is Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And across the aisle from me is Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune. Now, in addition to Foxes, we'll be reviewing 4 other new films: the satirical California comedy Serial, the brooding horror movie The Changeling, the romantic Australian drama My Brilliant Career, and now Gene begins with Nijinsky.
I think I'm one of few movie critics that enjoy the new film Nijinsky. I don't think it's the greatest picture ever made, but I did like it. Nijinsky tells the story of one critical year in the life of Vaslav Nijinsky, the great Russian dancer, whose star shone so brightly until he was committed to a mental institution at age 28, where he would spend the next 33 years of his life. The film's thesis is that Nijinsky was driven mad by those around him, including his mentor and occasional lover, the art impresario Sergei Diaghilev. In this scene, based on historical fact, Nijinsky, in Paris in 1912, dances the Afternoon of a Faun. It's the world premiere, and Nijinsky concludes the dance with a series of motions that can only be considered masturbation. The audience is horrified, but Diaghilev thinks it's great.
When did you decide to do that? For God's sake, why did you do that? Do you know what you've done? You've just masturbated in front of all Paris.
It wasn't me. It was the phone.
Vaslav, you must see what we've done. Tonight, we've broken through to an entirely new plastic art. And if we've created a scandal into the bargain, well, who cares? There won't be an empty seat in the house for the whole season. That, sir, this is the most exciting evening of my life, because it's shown me that all my instincts were right.
Why did I do it? Why did it happen? Tell me. You must know. Doing something and hardly knowing that you're doing it, as if someone else was doing it. That's being mad, isn't it? It won't happen, will it? I won't be like my brother.
Things happen, or they don't. We just go on from day to day, letting the future take care of itself. But one thing is certain. I found my new choreographer.
That was George de la Pena, a New York dancer as Nijinsky, and Alan Bates as Diaghilev. Bates's performance is the part of the film that I especially enjoyed. Here in another scene, we see Bates once again trying to control the fiery Nijinsky, who is frustrated as he tries to choreograph a dance based on Stravinsky's revolutionary The Rite of Spring.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Can't you hear the rhythm in the music? Do it with me. Play.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1,
Maria Pilz. I've shown her 1,000 times, and she still doesn't understand.
You shouted at her in front of the whole company.
Why not? You let Stravinsky shout at me. What, am I so different from him? I'm the choreographer here. If I'm going to get this ballet done, I've got to do it my way. Unless, since you're so creative, you'd rather do it yourself. Come back here!
Do I have to remind you that nobody in this company speaks to me in that way?
It's about time somebody did.
Yes, it's a little melodramatic, but if anyone's life deserves to be portrayed as melodramatic, I suppose it must be Nijinsky's. This is standard show business biography for sure, but I got caught up in the story of an artist in conflict with his manager, and although I know the film has some faults, like Leslie Brown as Nijinsky's wife, she's terrible in the film, I was never bored by Nijinsky, and in fact, I did enjoy it.
Well, I was never bored either, but what kept me from being bored was that I was appalled by how bad the movie was at times. I mean, Nijinsky was the first great international ballet superstar. Diaghilev was the man who put ballet on the map in terms of an international phenomenon, and that's interesting. And you're right when you say that they've taken the story and turned it into another show business biography. I've seen this film before. It's been done about Benny Goodman and everybody else they ever made a show business movie
Well, maybe
about.
the explanation there is that show business people who are very successful have that same kind of lives. To be fair, Benny Goodman didn't spend the last 33 years of his life in a mental institution, which is the very special nature of this film. The director opens the film with Nijinsky in a mental institution and closes it, and we do see why he got there.
I didn't. I mean, I was very disappointed at the end. They said, and then he spent the next 33 years of his life
You see all the pressures in his life.
up.
You see all the pressures. He's an artist. He's very young. He's worried about his sexual problems. He's worried about being manipulated by Diaghilev. It's all there.
I always felt that those were just cliches that they were putting in. I never felt they were really telling me the story of this man's life and what really made him tick and what really motivated him.
Happened to be facts, and they picked the year, and they even put the dates on it.
Okay, let's call this a disagreement.
Okay.
Okay, fine. There's one place in all of America where our national suburban laid-back lifestyle seems to originate, and it must be Marin County in California, right across the bay from San Francisco. Marin County is into so many self-help, self-analysis, and self-remodeling philosophies that it makes Est look like summer camp. And now comes a satirical movie based on a best-selling book about Marin called Serial. It's a merciless but not very funny dissection of a whole generation of buzzwords, fashionable cliches, and such adult toys as hot tubs, gurus, encounter groups, granola, yogurt, television, high-fiber foods, and sex. More or less in that order. Now, Martin Mull stars in the movie as a typical middle-class husband, and here he is trying to survive the checkout line at the local supermarket.
Oh, wow. You sure you want this yucky bread?
What's wrong with it?
89. Everything. It's not even food. It's white flour and chemicals. You know, there's even sawdust in it.
Sawdust.
Well, cellulose. It's the same thing. Are you going to put this in your one and only body?
I have a spare.
Look at all this garbage you got here. Bar nuts, frozen pizza, instant coffee. You're poisoning yourself. Meat.
No good, huh?
Do you know how they kill these animals?
I try not to think about it. Listen, do you see anything in there that you like?
The onion. You shouldn't buy your veggies here, though they're not organic.
Okay, Marlene, that's it. You're fired.
Oh, wow.
Hey, wait a minute.
I warned her. Over and over, I warned her.
I'm only trying to keep people from killing themselves.
Yeah, aren't you overreacting a little?
Do you have an idea what this stuff does to rats?
I don't sell the rats. Take off the apron. I'll finish up here.
Gloria, please, Gloria.
Sorry. You know, I wouldn't mind one bit going back in there and giving that manager a real piece of my mind.
No.
That was such a crummy thing to do.
Well, anyway, thanks. It was really forward of you to get involved. You're really a beautiful person, you know?
Hey, want to go have a cup of coffee?
Oh, I don't drink coffee. It's an artificial stimulant.
Of course. Then you wouldn't want to have a drink either. So what do I offer you? Bite of my onion?
I'll tell you what. How about if I just go home with you and we go to bed together?
We could do that. Sure.
That's a great delayed double take there. Serial is filled with a lot of good ideas, and its satire of contemporary lifestyles must have looked funny on paper, but somehow it just doesn't work as a movie comedy. Maybe that's because it depends on its screenplay too much. Instead of acting funny or looking funny or reacting funny, people just stand around and say things that are supposed to be funny, and the movie falls flat.
It sure does. I think the problem is that we really don't have a movie here, but just a series of gags.
Right.
We don't get involved with any of the characters. They're not on screen long enough. They exist only to deliver funny lines, and that's it, and then they disappear. Well, in an hour-and-a-half movie, you need to get involved with some of the characters. You need a guide through all the material. We don't have it. It's a series of gags, not a movie.
Something I think you need in a satire like this is somebody to stand around and be the straight guy and say, these people are all crazy, or I'm the only sane person. And I guess Martin Mull was supposed to be that, but we don't see enough of it.
Not enough of him, and we really don't get involved in his story.
Two things I did like in a movie which I didn't like. I like Tommy Smothers as the guru of that California cult, and I like Christopher Lee, who played Dracula in all those movies, as the gay motorcycle gang leader. I thought those were kind of nice touches.
Okay, but we are not recommending the film.
We are not, no.
My Brilliant Career now is a film that we will recommend. It tells the true story of a young woman in Australia who at the turn of the century has a revolutionary idea. She doesn't want to get married. She wants to pursue instead a career in the arts. That's something of a shocking idea at the turn of the century, and it particularly shocks her wealthy grandmother, who has just the right young gentleman in mind for her granddaughter.
He'll come into quite a large fortune in England. He comes of a very good family and will make someone an excellent husband.
Well, it won't be me.
Oh, do be realistic, child.
Well, I am. To begin with, I don't love him.
That is not the point.
Well, it is to me.
Sibylla, do you want to be a burden on your family forever? With no status in decent society or a home of your own?
I will not be married off to someone I detest by you or anybody.
At times I fear for you, my girl. You are rude to your elders and betters, and often lack all gentility. Very well. Though you may not be prepared to apologize to Frank, I expect you to apologize to me when you have regained your humor and your manners.
That was Judy Davis as the granddaughter. She's the most compelling presence in this film. Spunky, warm, with a nice sense of herself, an actress certainly to look for in the future. We root for her character to get whatever it is she wants, especially when she's tempted by another very handsome man who is also quite wealthy. He's more interesting than the guy her grandmother picked out. She thinks she likes him, but she's nervous about that. He proposes, but she's not ready to get married.
I wish I could help you. Could you? Can you give me a bit of time? Maybe 2 years. You see, I'm just not ready yet. Last night, I don't know, I think I was trying to hurt you. Make you let go. Do something. Give me a chance to find out what's wrong with the world and with me. Who I am. Everything. Then I'll marry you. If you need me, and I can help. You do understand, don't you?
Of course I do.
I knew you would.
This, of course, is a very trendy subject, a woman pursuing a career instead of a marriage, but that isn't why My Brilliant Career is so good. It's the acting, particularly that actress Judy Davis, and also the magnificent Australian scenery. My Brilliant Career is a minor movie, but I found it very entertaining.
Okay, now, Gene, on this one, we're in total agreement, I should say. We've been disagreeing before. This is a wonderful movie, and I agree with you that it's because of Judy Davis, because this is a movie that has to sell us on the worth and the spunk and the value of this character. And a screenplay direction can only go so far, and then the actress has to step in and really sell us on her own worth, in a sense, by getting into the role. And I really loved her. I mean, I really was with her from beginning to end. I identified, and that, for me, made the movie work.
Yes, it's a very simple little story. It's about one person and what they want out of life, and if you don't care about her, you don't care about the movie. She's very good, reminds me of a young Jane Fonda, an actress to watch for.
Okay, we're in agreement about My Brilliant Career and also about Judy Davis. Our next movie is called Foxes, and it's about 4 16-year-old girls growing up in a middle-class suburb of Los Angeles. The movie stars Jodie Foster, who does a wonderful job of playing the one kid who has a little maturity, a little more insight into the lives that they're all leading, and she's sort of the mother hen of the group. When one of the girls can't wake up after a hard night, Jodie Foster takes charge.
Oh, we gotta wake up Annie. Annie? Annie, wake up.
Show me the right way. You got me begging.
Not yet.
What do you want from me?
Oh, I didn't even hear her come in. I was totally vegged.
She was sick all over some guy's car.
Yeah, for what?
Quaaludes, beer, wine, some really heavy kind of pills.
Poor thing. Teenage dopers. What a waste. Don't do that. Three Stooges, they always just sort of throw it.
She can't do that. She'll drown.
I'm only saying that's what the Three Stooges always do. I'm not saying she should do it, okay?
Yeah, well, you know, she did just one more time. That's it. They're just going to flunk her and throw her out in the street.
Oh, forget it.
What does that mean?
I mean, what? Please. She doesn't care if she never wakes up. You guys looking at?
It really kind of captures the camaraderie among those girls, which is really the subject of the film. The adventures of those teenage girls provide most of the movie's action, but there are also some very delicate and sensitive scenes between Jodie Foster and Sally Kellerman, who plays her mother. Kellerman's divorced from Jodie's father, who's a rock concert promoter, and now she's gone back to get her undergraduate degree at UCLA. And in this scene, mother and daughter have a frank talk about men.
Hi.
How's the concert? Fine. Saw Dad. How was he? Fine. What's wrong, Mom?
I just read this freaking page 5 times.
How come you're not asleep?
Because I have a test tomorrow, and I study for my test. Your dad thinks that if I get a degree that I'll be smart enough to leave him alone. Did you do your homework?
I don't have any. It's the weekend.
I got this crazy idea. You go to college, you read a lot of books, you become this brainy person. You're allowed to talk to neurotics like your mother.
How's your friend?
Sam?
He seems nice.
He's with his wife.
Oh.
Ex-wife. He's divorced.
That's cool.
He's taking me to lunch tomorrow.
Did he take you to dinner last night?
What does that mean?
Nothing, forget it.
I'm a 40-year-old woman. And I'm sitting here reading Plato again. It's insane. No, he didn't take me to dinner last night. And he didn't take me to dinner tonight like he said he would because his ex-wife called and he wasn't free to go. So he apologized.
What for?
Sure, I should have had dinner with him first and found out what his intentions were, if they were honorable or not. I was too busy throwing myself at some guy. Like all the other divorced, desperate UCLA undergraduates. But I did it because it felt good, because I wanted to. Okay?
Really nice portrait of a character there by Sally Kellerman as a divorced, desperate UCLA undergraduate. You can make a whole movie about her. But Foxes is a serious film about a serious subject, the pressures and dangers of growing up as a teenager in suburban America. Now, a lot of people are going to say that teenagers don't really live like that, and I sure hope they don't for their sakes, but I have a feeling that Foxes is a pretty accurate portrait of the scarier, lower levels of the teenage subculture, and I think it does a thoughtful and truthful job of showing us what these kids put themselves through in the process of growing up.
Well, I disagree. I don't share your enthusiasm for the film. I don't think it's that special. I think it's a fairly ordinary story of kids popping pills, getting drunk, and going to rock concerts and getting in trouble. And some of them OD and some don't. And I think What's unfortunate about the film is we can tell exactly what's going to happen to everybody by about the first 5 minutes. Just looking at that opening scene that we saw, well, we know the girl with the drug problem, it's probably going to be too much for her and she's not going to make it through the end of the picture. And we know that Jodie Foster, the star of the film, is going to make it all the way. She's very smart at the beginning. She's very smart at the end. There's no dramatic arch.
A part of the purpose of the film is to show the inevitability of that. Jodie Foster is a survivor. She's going to make it. She's going to learn. She's going to grow up to be an interesting adult, I think. And the other kid, who's zonked out at the beginning of the film, is probably going to come to a very bad end. And that's what the film is about, that way that, in a way, behavior by these kids can predestine and pre-doom them. I think that's, you know, it's not a suspense film. We're not sitting there going to see who's going to survive at the end of the film. We're seeing what happens to them, what this process is, what life in the San Fernando Valley, for example, can be like for some teenagers if they're unlucky enough to get into this subculture.
Well, we know that, Roger. We know it off the gun. In 5 minutes, I know what's going to happen. So you say it's not a suspense picture. Well, I prefer to think of it as a picture that has no suspense.
Maybe the kids that this movie is about and the kids who will go to see this movie don't know that.
I think they do know that, and frankly, I'm not interested in seeing a lecture for teenagers about what the horrors of their life. That's a little facile. I would have been more interested in the picture more with Foster and Kellerman. I agree with you. That's the part of the picture that's interesting. More discussions with them. We don't need a furniture-breaking scene. We don't need a rock concert scene in the picture, and we don't need a car chase at the end of the film. Those are all flashy little emotions.
It's not a perfect picture, but I think it's a lot more interesting than you're giving it credit for.
Okay, here's a picture that I don't think is at all interesting. I'm interested in your reaction. The Changeling is one of those haunted house pictures in the order of the Amityville Horror, but the biggest surprise in the picture is not what jumps out at us, but who's starring in the film. Would you believe George C. Scott? Now, what's he doing in a picture like this? Scott plays a widower who moves into an old Seattle mansion that hasn't been lived in for years. Soon he hears wild, alarming noises. Does he move out? No way. And the dumbness accelerates when Scott discovers that the house holds the secret of the murder of a young boy. One clue is some words that a psychic has written on a piece of paper, and real estate agent Trish Vanderveer, in tears because she knows of the boy's murder, she helps Scott unlock the puzzle.
I shouldn't have called you. It's just that I needed something. I wrote some words on the paper. I wrote sacred heart.
There used to be a county orphanage named Sacred Heart. It was closed down years ago.
Orphanage? That child, Joseph Carmichael, he was murdered in this house in the attic and buried, and then an orphan.
Stop it, John, just for 1 minute, please.
Oh my, they just saw the dead boy's wheelchair. Very dumb acting there, so stiff, so forced. We can't believe that George C. Scott would act so stupidly as he does in this picture, and in rejecting him and his character, we reject the entire movie. The Changeling is the waste of a very good actor.
You know, Gene, I agree with you on this when you're right, and also about George C. Scott. I want to try something out on you. It seems to me that, in a sense, the problem with Scott's performance in this film is that it's too good. It's too subtle, it's too psychologically sound, it's too rational and laid back. And in a sense, in a haunted house movie like this, we actually need someone who will just wade in there and be more melodramatic and more hammy somehow to milk this material.
The other thing that we need is a very clear delineation of good and evil. And we don't know how to relate to the monster in this picture, the boy in this case, because on one hand we feel sympathy. He's a dead little boy. He didn't do anything wrong. On the other hand, his ghost is doing something wrong. He's throwing all sorts of junk at George C. Scott, who's a perfectly good guy. So you don't know how to relate to the monster, and you wind up with a very confused picture of what should be a real slam-bang, jump-at-him, scary.
Maybe the basic thing that's the basic problem of the film is that it's too ambitious for its own good.
Well, now here's Spot the Wonder Dog to put his paw print on some films that are absolutely no good. It's time for Dog of the Week, where we each pick the week's worst movies.
Well, Spot, you really found a stinkeroo for me this week. My dog is a schlock disaster movie mistitled When Time Ran Out, and time is about the only thing that doesn't run out during this turkey. It's about an exploding volcano that threatens to destroy a tourist island in the Pacific, and it was produced by Irwin Allen, the same guy who unloaded Beyond the Poseidon Adventure and The Swarm on us. They all have the same formula. A bunch of movie stars fleeing in horror from some half-baked catastrophe with time out for ham-bone romantic subplots. When time ran out, waste the talents of good actors, including William Holden as a brave real estate investor who wants to evacuate the island. James Franciscus as a resort owner who says the volcano is only bluffing. Paul Newman is a courageous geologist who warns of impending doom. And Jacqueline Bisset, who's in love with at least 2 of the men in this movie and maybe more. Now, the climactic scene has everyone creeping across a bridge over a river of molten lava while the audience makes bets on who's going to fall in.
Well, who does fall in?
Everybody except the Academy Award nominees. Nominated for other pictures. Yeah.
My dog this week is The Fifth Floor, the story of a young go-go dancer who gets trapped in a mental institution where she's abused by other patients and by the hospital staff, sort of a kinky one flew over the cuckoo's nest. Problem with this film is that it is just a cheap shocker that uses a psychiatric hospital to tease us with that old and sick standby, the defenseless young woman in peril. Haven't we seen enough pictures like that? Bondage freaks may enjoy it when the young woman is tied up in a straitjacket. That's the level of sick thrills in The Fifth Floor, which I advise you to stay off of.
Well, so much for the dogs. Now let's take another look at the main movies on this program. Nijinsky is the story of the great Russian ballet dancer, and Gene recommends that you see it.
Yes.
I voted no because I thought it was a better investigation of soap opera cliches than of ballet. We both voted no on Serial, the not very funny comedy about modern California lifestyles. 2 big yes votes, though, for My Brilliant Career, starring Judy Davis as a spunky and charming Australian girl with an independent spirit. Foxes was the story of 4 young Los Angeles girls. I admired its scary portrait of a teenage subculture. Gene thought it was the standard good kids, bad parents movie. He votes no. He can't recommend that you see Foxes. And we both voted no on The Changeling, the new horror film starring George C. Scott that just wasn't very scary.
So the one we agree on, My Brilliant Career.
My Brilliant Career, right.
Okay, that's it for this show. Next time on Sneak Previews, we'll take a look at 5 more new movies, including Folks, a thriller starring Roger Moore, Where the Buffalo Roam, with Bill Murray as the maverick journalist Hunter S. Thompson, and Nothing Personal, a romantic comedy starring Donald Sutherland and Suzanne Summers. Until then, see you at the movies.
Funding for Sneak Previews was provided by this station and by other public television stations.